nachos.
Greetings and welcome, friends. I'm Ash, and in order to distract myself from the hell that is the real world, I figured I'd put on my rosiest glasses and indulge in a bit of nostalgia. And since the Crash Bandicoot series represents a big part of my childhood, I finally decided to give Crash Bandicoot 4 It's About Time a proper bash. A Crash Bash, if you will. Though don't actually play Crash Bash, cause that one is kinda bad. And you know what? I deeply regret not doing this before because Crash 4 is astonishingly good, as long as you don't actually try to complete it. I'll go into more details about that nonsense later, but to begin, let's answer what is Crash 4 even about? To put it simply, it is a moderately to fairly challenging action platformer with a heavy emphasis on gathering collectibles and completing a variety of tasks in every single level. If you just run through the levels ignoring all the side objectives, you can probably finish the whole thing in a couple of hours. It'll be incredibly boring and not worth your money, but you can definitely do that. The same way you can totally go to a football game purely to sample the hot dogs and then just go home before the match even starts. The expected way of playing Crash 4, however, or any Crash game for that matter, is to approach it with a sort of cross-the-checklist mindset. If there are still collectibles or objectives left in a mission, you don't move on until you've managed to conquer them all. This will not only give you a lot more bang for your buck, but it'll also make the whole experience a lot more fulfilling, as overcoming these tricky, carefully designed obstacle courses is exactly what makes the Crash series so compelling. Besides the usual Crash mechanics like double jumping, sliding, and spinning, Crash 4 introduces 4 quantum masks that give you temporary yet level warping powers. These include the ability to change gravity, the ability to slow down time, the ability to turn your spin into an actual tornado, as well as the ability to make certain objects phase in and out of reality. The quantum masks feel like a natural extension of Crash's moveset and thus don't require any sort of tutorializing. As soon as you've seen what each of them does, you're fully on board. Yet despite this, there's enough complexity to their usage to make mastering each one feel very satisfying. They're also only ever used in obstacle courses designed specifically around them, and even then only sparingly, so they remain an interesting novelty all the way from the beginning to the end of the game. So as far as adding new mechanics to a well-established platformer like Crash Bandicoot goes, I would say the 4 new masks are a smash hit. The reason all of this works so well, however, is because the controls in Crash 4 are buttery smooth. Outside of the damnable jet ski sections that have been annoying every single time they've ever shown up, you're going to be in full control of your character. Everything that happens to you, be this good or bad, is going to be entirely on your shoulders. By getting comfortable with the controls, you'll be able to do death-defying platforming without even a single worry about landing on the wrong spot. And this feature the developers then relied on to create some truly insane gauntlets that might seem straight up impossible on the first go-around, yet become as routine as a Sunday stroll after a couple of attempts. It is this process of becoming good at Crash 4 that has managed to completely and utterly consume my past 2 weeks. The cycle of being confused at the start, slightly frustrated after numerous failed attempts, and then finally elated and triumphant after a glorious performance is a very addictive gameplay loop. And Crash 4 is chock full of these moments, even in the very early stages of the campaign. At this point, I do feel like it's also important to mention that things don't have to become hard unless you actually want them to. If you're happy with only doing, let's say, 90% of a tough map and then leaving instead of trying to perfect everything, that's fine. The only tangible rewards you get for fully completing maps are cosmetic skins, and you can always get a few missing gems to unlock those by doing the alternative style-shifted and murdered versions of each level. That said, I would still recommend trying to tough it out and giving each basic level a proper bash, as the process of clearing the checklist really is the core of the experience. This applies only to the basic levels, however, as trying to fully complete Crash 4 will likely drive you stark raving mad. You see, Crash 4 has a very unique and very bizarre problem I have not seen anywhere else. It features a frankly absurd amount of content for you to chew on, so much so that you'll probably start to choke on it. And however much content you're thinking about right now, I can guarantee you that you are 1 or 2 orders of magnitude off the mark. It really is a lot. If you want to see the first special ending, you'll need to 100% every single level and its inverted variant, which is a slightly reshuffled version of the same level with a generally unpleasant full screen filter applied to it. As such, even if you play perfectly, you're going to have to do every single level at least 2 times. However, you are probably not a top tier Crash 4 speedrunner that knows where all of the hidden boxes are and where all of the hidden gems are, so chances are that's going to be at least 2 to 3 tries on every single level, and then just as many for the inverted stages, which can be a lot more devious. Because of this, pursuing 100% completion means that you're going to be spending a lot of your time playing and replaying the same levels over and over and over again, which is great news if you like to make your gaming time feel like actual work. But wait, there's more. If you want to get the super duper special ending, you'll need to undertake an even more harrowing challenge. You'll need to complete every level perfectly in one shot without dying a single time or missing a single box, do a near perfect speedrun of every single level, as well as fully complete all of the challenging flashback tapes. It is a brutal and miserable grind. It is completely and utterly excessive, and most bafflingly of all, it's just plain old unnecessary. Crash 4, in its most basic form, has enough interesting, challenging, and beautifully designed levels to not need any of this pointless padding. If you simply treat Crash 4 like you would any of the previous games, and try to 100% complete each normal level, collect each colored gem, and complete all of the platforming focused flashback tapes, you will get a highly enjoyable 30-hour adventure that will have you gallivant across a wide variety of different settings, meet or play as a menagerie of oddball characters, and, as is tradition, also rip your hair out in all sorts of challenge gauntlets. And all of this without ever overstaying its welcome or feeling rushed. It's so good, in fact, that I'm gonna stop rambling about all of this and get back to what really, truly matters. Gushing about Crash 4. And you know what rhymes with gushing? It's rushing, which is something you'll definitely not want to do with Crash 4, as its presentation is downright gorgeous. Every single level is full of fun little details that must have taken ages to create, yet are often visible for only a couple of seconds while you manically run away from a T-Rex or something similarly silly. But when you do stop and do really take in the scenery, you'll notice a lot of really small nods to older games and tiny little lovely details, where it becomes plainly obvious that the developers genuinely loved the Crash Bandicoot series and wanted to do it justice. The best part, however, is the sheer variety when it comes to the themes and levels. There's a shark-infested pirate cove, an alien world with flying turtles, a planet-wide festival, and even my childhood dream come true, a giant volcano with all sorts of dinosaurs on it. None of these locations ever overstay their welcome either. You're only there for a couple of distinct levels and that's it. Combine this with the aforementioned attention to detail and I simply didn't have a chance to get bored with any specific level. By the time I was sick of it, I was already moving on to something completely different, which would then immediately cleanse my palate and get me ready for even more platforming goodness. The only downside to all of this is that you are at risk of suddenly losing a lot of hours when jumping around in Crash 4, so do be careful if you intend to play around bedtime. The only aspect of the presentation that I found to be simply okay was the music. It's not bad by any stretch, but when compared to the original trilogy's soundtrack, I feel like it lacks a bit of oomph. There's quite a few tracks that rely too heavily on the xylophone to give them that Crash Bandicoot feeling, only to then become nearly indistinguishable from one another because of it. This isn't to say that Crash 4 doesn't have any memorable music, quite the contrary actually. The main theme is phenomenal, as is my favorite track out of the whole bunch, Offbeat. This one plays during the Mardi Gras level, and not only is it a banger all on its own, but the level itself is designed around the rhythm, which gives the whole thing a very fun vibe. If we just had a few more standout pieces like that instead of some of the more atmospheric and kind of forgettable tracks, I think this could have been an all-star soundtrack. The final thing worth mentioning is something that a lot of people might not care about, but for me it is something that I value a great deal, and that is modability. In a world where most games are locked down tighter than Fort Knox, Crash 4 allows its players to add or modify all sorts of stuff, like custom skins, sounds, challenges, and even full levels. So if you're like me and you don't like the idea of relentless repetition, rejoice, as the modding community has your back. The enhanced mod makes all of the inverted stages optional, tones down the hidden crate and pixel jumping aspects of the original collectibles, and even adds a few extra checkpoints to make 100% completing some of the more agonizing levels less, well, agonizing. The super difficult stuff like the Perfection Relics or Platinum Time Relics are still there, but they have thankfully been made optional, so you can do them if you desire the extra challenge, but you don't have to do them in order to actually finish the game and get the quote-unquote proper ending. And if you're feeling really spicy, you can also turn Crash into Mario and get the extra thrill of having to dodge not only bottomless pits, but also Nintendo's lawyers. With tight gameplay, charming visuals, and a plethora of levels to smash your face against, Crash Bandicoot 4 is a modern platforming classic, and I don't say that lightly. Its only real flaw is that the developers really, desperately wanted to get you your money's worth, so they added way too much stuff to the game. However, once you're aware of that fact, it is very easy to ignore all of the extra fluff and focus on that very juicy core at the center of it all. So if you're a fan of action platformers, or simply enjoy a nice challenge every now and then, I would heartily recommend giving Crash 4 a try. With a bit of luck, its continued success might even convince Toys for Bob to make an even better Crash 5 at some point in the future. Now that would be a treat. Thank you guys for watching, and if you enjoyed this, or even if you didn't, please do let me know. If you would like to see more, make sure to hit the bell, like the video, pet your marsupial, and do whatever other arcane ritual you gotta do these days. Thank you again for watching, and I do hope to see you soon. Bye bye!